Hello, I'm Troshinsky, and this is a developer commentary for my game Loop Raccord. For many people, a game about synchronizing video seems like a very strange idea. For me, it turned out to be quite an obvious one, and I want to explain a little bit why. So first, you have to know that I'm not a game developer. My background is in illustration and animation filmmaking, and Loop Raccord is just my second game. So, as a beginner trying to learn how to make games, the first logical steps to me were to try to apply what I learned in animation filmmaking to video game design. And to explain this a little bit better, I will first talk about some of my influences. My first big influence comes from the cinema of English filmmaker Peter Greenaway. I have been fascinated with his cinema for many years, and lately I've been very interested in his video editing experiments, such as his Tools Looper trilogy. The Tools Looper films use all kinds of crazy editing techniques. They explore almost everything you could imagine by overlaying different shots on screen at the same time and repeating shots and combining them, and it does that for almost 6 hours of film, so it's pretty amazing. There was this idea of video manipulation, but there is also this idea of repetition, because in Tools Looper film there's lots of repetition in the dialogues.
Then show us the money. Then show us the money. Show us the money.
Some of that is for my kids. Some of that is for my kids. Some of that is for my kids.
There are lists, there are events that are repeated over and over, there are motifs that are repeated over and over, etc. So my second reference was Fast Film, which is an experimental animation short film by Virgil Wildrich. In this film, hundreds of scenes from classical American movies are printed on paper, folded, and shot frame by frame in stop-motion animation to create an ironic portrait of American movies. It's not only manipulating film to give it a new context and meaning, but it also uses a lot of movement continuity tricks in a very elegant ways. My third reference is actually a self-reference. Motion continuity is an effect I've been using quite often for my own short films, so it wasn't something completely new to me. In fact, the title credits for my graduation film, Je Pluriel, use the exact same layout and continuity illusion as Loop Raccord does. The fact that I had the feeling that a video editing game could be compelling to play is because I did it already somehow. I had a lot of fun editing that title sequence for my graduation film. I knew it feels satisfying when you get the illusion right, and I knew how magical it is to watch the effect working. Video games have been largely influenced by movies, but I couldn't find any video game that was using pure cinematographic language without dealing with stories and storytelling. So I decided to do one by myself. First step was finding the videos, and it was probably the longest and most difficult task. For me, it had to be a found footage game, as shooting the videos by myself would have been too easy, and I wanted to demonstrate that movement continuity is found everywhere in cinema and that it could work with anything, not just with some shots I shoot specifically to create the effect. This is the reason why I decided to not manipulate the source videos in any way. I wanted to leave the framings, I wanted to leave the speeds, I wanted to leave it completely untouched. because if I had started to touch it, it would be no difference for me between shooting my own shot and manipulating an existing one. So this reduced it to finding shots with very clear movements that went from one side of the screen to another side of the screen in about 40 frames. And as you can imagine, it's quite difficult to find that, because in most films the cameraman will be following the movement with his camera. So it's quite rare to find a shot in which you can see a movement crosses the whole screen. The kind of movements I was looking for proved extremely rare, especially if you consider that I needed movements from the upper side of the screen to the left, which is very unusual. Regarding the sound, I hesitated about keeping the looping sounds for each video or not, or doing something about it, because it's a bit a violent effect that after a bit of thought I decided that it was worth to leave it like that, because I saw it as a natural way of increasing the difficulty as the level progressed. The more sound, the more complicated to concentrate on what you're doing. At this point the game looked more like a video editing tool than a game. I found it amusing to try to push the contrast even further. I added everything I could think of to make it feel more like a game, even if it didn't look like one. This is why all the sound effects are somehow connected to the game themes. The videos appear like there were poker cards, jackpot sounds trigger when the record is done, sports audiences cheering when the bonus is awarded. Scores, bonuses and achievements were there to reinforce the game structure. When thinking of the iPad as a platform for the game, one of the first things I wanted to do is a two-player mode. For me, the beautiful thing about the iPad is that you can put it on a table, sit in front of a friend, and turn it into a tabletop game. To reinforce this, I wanted the two chains to entangle. The player's hands will become part of the game too, as you are free to hide your opponent's videos or to grab his hand or whatever dirty playing you want to do. Even if you want to play it fairly, being so close to each other adds a lot of charm in the experience, in my opinion. In the end, Loop Raccord is just a puzzle game. But the interesting thing to me is that this is a puzzle with no truly correct answers. There's no science to tell when a movement is correctly connected to each other. In a film, the filmmaker makes constant subjective choices on how to shoot a scene, how to edit a sequence, and the audience accept this as correct information, whereas in games players tend to expect objectivity from the game designer. Making a subjective puzzle game was just another interesting part of the project. The logics of how video editing works are totally unknown to the wide audience, so I'm really happy to be able to share it, and I'm really proud to see that this game helped many people to understand how one of the most important and basic cinema illusions work. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you're enjoying the game as well. If you want to know even more about this and other projects, you can follow me on Twitter or on my blog. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.